Sunday, I never know what Sunday it is. I don't know why I start with like I know what I'm doing. Sunday, June 14th. We've been looking through the book of Genesis. Today's going to be really good. Not saying the other days weren't good, but today's going to be really good. Um, we're in Genesis chapter 3, looking at the first 7 verses. I title this uh, Why We Sin and How to Stop. So, we're going to look at the first temptation when the serpent comes to Eve and tempts her. Don't forget that Adam and Eve are in the garden. Download, update. No, don't want to do that. Uh, Adam and Eve are in the garden that God has created for them, doing good, living life. Everything's great, right? Then now up pops the devil. I used to say that in the church. See, up pops the devil. Okay, so let's just start reading. My power cord is not working. I have 50. I have 47%. Can't get my power cord to work. So I'm not going to read a lot of other scriptures. I'm just going to focus on Genesis, see how far I can go. So it's going to be good. Okay. But we're going to start in Genesis chapter 2. That last verse of Genesis chapter 2, verse 25 says, "And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." So the writer of Genesis is going to make a point because later we're going to see them. They both are naked and they are ashamed. So what he says, by the way, they were both naked. It wasn't a problem. The image, the word picture he's giving us is that they could just stand before God. They felt no guilt. They felt no shame, nothing to hide, totally open. By the way, that's what we long for is a relationship with someone where we can be totally open. We can just be naked, metaphorically, before them. It could be a friend. It could be a parent. It could be whoever. We want those people in our lives that we could just be naked in front of. You know what I'm saying? That we could just be totally open and say, this is who I am, and know that there's nothing between you. There aren't hurts and grievances and like we're just anyway. That's what they had with God before the devil came, right? And so that's the sort of relationship that we all have with God, and then the devil comes, right? So uh, we're going to start Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field. Oh, so the word naked in that last verse is arum, A-R-U-M. Okay. It says, now the serpent was more arumim, and it's a play on the word naked. It's a play on that word. It kind of means like a false nakedness. So first, let's look at the serpent. The thing about the serpent is that he can slide up right. He's like one of the few animals that can just slide up right next to you. You don't know he's there. He's just suddenly there. He just moves so swift, and that's the devil. He can just slide up right next to you before you realize the devil's just right next to you. So, and the devil picked the serpent for that reason. There weren't any people around to possess. There was only Adam and Eve, and the devil has to influence someone or possess someone or get in somebody's ear or something's ear to get to you. The devil doesn't just show up as the devil in your house because then you would go, well, that's the devil, and you wouldn't listen. So instead, he gets in somebody's ear close to you. There was no one close to Adam and Eve because there were only two. So he had to pick an animal. So, oh, the serpent, because the serpent can just slide right in, right, and just get right next to you. So he picked the serpent. He says, and he was more arumim, which again, I told you that the word naked is A-R-U-M, but this word subtle, cunning is A-R-U-M-I-M. It's a play on nakedness. It's a false nakedness. It's a, you know, I'm just trying to help you. This is just me. That I'm just getting in here and just pretending that I'm on your side. It's a false transparency. It's a false nakedness. I'm just, this is just me talking to you right now, and you know I'm your friend, and it's pretending. I'm just laying out my cards. I'm just telling you how I feel. It's a fake nakedness, and the serpent was just better at just getting right up next to you and pretending he's your friend. He's about to, right? And so that's why the devil picked him. So he said, now the serpent was more a rumim, more falsely naked than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. He's getting right next to you, but he's not your friend. And he said to the woman, now I'm going to tell you now, Adam was not there. Devil talks to the woman. Adam's not just standing there watching the devil because Adam was not there. And that says something about Adam. We'll talk about that later. And well, anyway, we'll get into it. But he said to the woman, has God indeed said that you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Now, here's how I used to interpret that he was just simply casting doubt on what God said. Did God say that? But the indeed is a what? Did God say you can't eat of every tree? He's making Eve feel bad about it. Did God indeed say? God said that to you? And so he's already wanting to put a rift between them, right? Has God indeed? What? God came up and said that you could not eat of every tree, and he's recasting it because God had said you can eat of every tree, but that one. But he's going to change the whole paragraph. God said you cannot eat of every tree. I cannot believe it. God came to you and said you cannot eat of every tree. And it's that half glass full, half glass empty thing. He's going to change your perspective, right? This is a prohibition. God is shutting you down. I can't believe it. You could have had every tree, but God says you cannot have every tree. This is terrible. And he wants to change. Wow, yeah, what an oppressive God I serve. Not God has allowed me to look at 5,000 trees except that one. It's like, you could have looked at 5,001 trees. And God said, no, I can't believe how mean he is. So what he said, so he puts Eve in a defensive position because he starts off with, God said you can't eat of every tree. So she immediately begins to defend God, which you don't have to do that. What she should have done was go to God. See, so conversations we have about God should be conversations we have directed to Him. Conversations we have about other people are conversations we should have with them, right? If somebody comes to you and say, "Did your mama say that?" Well, hold on, let me go talk to mama and find out for myself what she said. And when the devil comes to us, we would be so much more successful. So this is why we sin and how to stop. We'd be so much more successful at defeating sin if we immediately would go to God when the devil came to us. Ooh, the devil's making me want to go and get drunk right now, Lord. But he's like the last person that we want to take our troubles to, which is ridiculous. He should be the first person. He's the only one that can actually help us. Ooh, Lord, I want to drive my car into that other car because he cut me off. Lord, I'm about to cuss this person. And people used to know that. Remember, hold me back, hold me back, hold me back, right? That fake thing that you did because you wanted your friends to stop you from fighting. We should do that real thing with God. Hold me back and just tell them the truth. I'm about to cut my husband in the throat because he won't stop snoring. This is my wife is heckling me. Or whatever it is that you're about to do, tell God about it. But we're like embarrassed. Like God's going to be disappointed. What? You're thinking of sinning? I have never heard of sin before. I didn't know people thought that way. It'd be the opposite. Like, tell him, Lord, I'm about to get high. I am 2 seconds from it. Or Lord, I'm about to go off. Or Lord, I'm about to do. If we would go to him when the devil comes to us, that would cut down on a lot because then he would give us the way out. Because that's why the Bible says there's no temptation that's taken us that is not common to man. Whatever temptation, he gives you a way of escape. But if you don't go to him, you don't find out what that way of escape was. Because God will say, well, instead of running the man over with your car, what if you do that? He'd give you the other thing to do. You go, oh, yeah, that's much better. Ooh, I was 2 seconds away from. Yeah, I know. And I'm standing here with the answer. But if you don't ever come to me, I can't give you the answer. I'm not going to force it down your throat, or, although sometimes he'll just stop your car from running so you can't get there. But he didn't want to have to do that. He wants you to come to him. So here's Eve's first mistake. In fact, there's 5 major things that Eve did wrong, and that's what we do wrong. So we're just going to look at these quickly. And then, okay, how many? Oh, I'm only at 40. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. Hallelujah. I can get through this. So, and as I readjust my power cord, hoping it comes on, but no. Okay. So, she says to the serpent, instead of going to God, she's going to defend God. And then she quotes God. She quotes him incorrectly in 5 areas. I'm just going to major in 4 of them. So it says, she says let me tell you what God said. We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden. Now, here's the difference. God said, you may freely eat of the trees of the garden. So she's diminishing the freedom aspect, and that's the best aspect. That's the best aspect of it. When I was going to UCLA, um, it's hard to get parking at UCLA. Anybody I hear some amens out in the audience right now. And so there's some sort of lottery system you apply in order to park on campus. And the community around UCLA is this Brentwood, this gorgeous Beverly Glen community. But there's no parking in front of their homes because they would like to park in front of their homes, and they don't need 20,000 students parking. So if you don't get parking on campus, you have to park a mile and a half away, 2 miles away, and walk. So here's my opportunity to either be mad or look at it differently. And I chose to look at it differently. So as I was walking to campus, I thought to myself, wow, this is such a beautiful walk. I'm really blessed. I could be walking through a less desirable community, a more dangerous place. This is gorgeous. These homes are wonderful. Or I could have been thinking, oh, I hate UCLA, making me walk to campus. This is so stupid. And I'm thinking, I'm so blessed. Every day, I am so blessed to be able to, first of all, I got accepted into this school. This is fantastic. I got accepted into UCLA. It's a gorgeous school. I'm so blessed to have just been able to go there, because there are people who tried to get in, weren't able to get in. They only accepted like 10% of the applicants. So first of all, I'm blessed. So that's my attitude, walking. And I had this joyful walk. And every day I would come, I was like, it says he renews our blessings every morning. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. I'd see a new thing to be excited about, grateful for. And I wasn't doing this because I watched Oprah. I was just doing this because it was the truth. I'd walk to campus and think, wow, I get to really work on that skit that's coming up during this little 20-minute walk that I have to campus. That class I've got, I can really meditate on what I'm going to say. I would do so well when I got to class. Now, when I went to UCLA, I'd already been to Bible college, and I'd already been to other colleges. I was doing my upperclassmen work there at UCLA, my junior and senior year at UCLA. And I was 10 years older than the other students. So I had a slightly different attitude. Many of them had been told by their parents, you're going to UCLA, or you're going to school, and at 18. I was 28 when I went there, at 18. And so they had a whole different, yeah, I'm going to UCLA. And I'm thinking, I get to go to UCLA. Yeah, I'm so fortunate. Because I had been to other schools and I had done other things. And so I'm like, oh, I get to go to UCLA. This is so great. But they were thinking, yeah, I'm going. And I promise you, it changes the attitude. Her saying, yeah, we may eat of the fruit, instead of God said, you may freely eat. Here, look at so here's what he's painting for them. I've created this garden for you, and you get to eat from that tree. You get to eat from that tree. It's like the first time you go to Disneyland, right? And your parents take you, get to go on this ride, and you go, if you were fortunate and had your parents take you as a child, course, now you can't afford it. And you get to go here, and it's like, this is the best thing in the world. We could look at all this stuff we get to do, right? Uh, that's how it should have been their attitude. That's what he was saying. You freely can eat from all this. You can either look at it as a gift to you, or you can look at it as, yeah, I'm going to UCLA. One time I was walking up this hill, because you had to walk uphill to get to the campus from where I was parked. And I thought, I can walk. There are people who can't walk. And I'm weeping. I'm crying by the time I got to campus because I'm thinking, I'm so blessed. I can walk. The people, what if I couldn't walk? Like, this is such a blessing. I'm, t- I would be skipping and singing when I got to campus because I was so excited. The other students like, that guy's always happy. That guy's, I don't get it because I did not take it. Yeah, I'm going to UCLA. I always took it as, I get to go to UCLA. Now this could be any school, but that's it. Anything that you have, if you can either look at it as a blessing from God, and see something He's freely given you. Are you gonna? Yeah, I got that. But so the first thing she did was take out the freely, right? And when you don't look at things the right way, then you start to take it for granted. That's one step towards sin. This is one step towards it. She wasn't sinning before she got there, but you have to look at things as a privilege. I'm just going to meddle a tiny bit. So you could either say, "Oh, this quarantine we're going through." Either you can. So this depends on your how you look at God. Either the world is a football game between God and the devil, and sometimes God is winning, and sometimes the devil's winning. Either so, some of us have been taught to look at it this way: that the devil is God's opposite equal, and sometimes the devil has his way, and sometimes God. So if you look at it that way, then you're like, wow, look at this quarantine we've been going through. The devil sure had his way, and this is terrible. And I can't wait till this is over. Or you can say, you know what? This is God's world. So if this has happened, then God allowed this to happen. I'm sure He has some wonderful thing for me to do while this is happening. Because there's some people who looked at this quarantine time and said, well, I wonder what wonderful thing God has for me while this is happening. I wonder what wonderful thing that God is going to share that I can learn during this because God allowed this. And so with this time, you know, uh, I can either be stressed, which won't change anything. My stress won't change anything. Or I could be, okay, Lord, you freely gave this to me. So what am I supposed to accomplish during this time since I have it while I'm at home? Is this more time to get closer to my kids? Is this time to work on that project that you had that I've always wanted to do? Is it time to read that book? That am I supposed to get to know my neighbors better so that I can help them? I mean, like, if this is from you, what's the good that's there? It's always here. So some people have been thriving, and some people just been surviving, just barely surviving because of their attitude, how they're looking at it, how you look. So we can either, within every situation, the Bible says, in every situation, give thanks. Okay, thank you, Lord, for this situation. Because you must have something, because you make all things work together for my good. So I know, I trust that you're in charge of my life. So what's the good that you have here for me? It's hard for me to see it, so help me see it. Okay, so I won't spend 5 hours on each of the things that she got wrong. But the first thing she got wrong is she said, we may eat of the fruit of the trees, but actually says you may freely eat, and that's important that we know that this is a gift that God has given us. And it's our attitude about it. It makes all the difference. Okay. But of the fruit of the tree which in the midst of the garden you may not eat. He didn't say the tree in the midst of the garden. He said the tree, the knowledge of good and evil. He was really specific. And she's not being specific. And God is naming what the evil is. He's saying it's the tree of you deciding what's good and evil. And we have to know what, so this is the very definition of sin. Either I decide what is good and evil, or God decides what's good and evil. Period. You either trust God when God says, no, don't do that. That's going to be bad for you. Or you say, I know more than God. So only one of you us can be in charge of the universe. It's either me or God. So at some point we dethrone God and say, I know we in your home. So when your parents took you to Disneyland, and at a certain point you said, I'm going to go with my friends to Disneyland. I know more than my parents do about what rides I want to go on, and I, let me, let me be in charge. We all do that in your house. You know what? My parents have these rules, and I think I know what's best. So I'm gonna get my own place. Well, that's what you have to do ultimately, because your parents say, "I'm making rules in this house, and you're making rules in this house, and we can't both make rules in this house." So you have to go get your own house then. If you're to the point where you think you know more than me, go out and show me. And God's saying that too. If you're at the point where you get to decide what's good and evil, you show me. If you think you know what's best, let me see what kind of world you would make without me. And then we can look at the world and go, oh, this is the mess that we've come up with because we aren't trusting God. We aren't seeking God. We aren't going to God for, God, what should we do in this situation? We think we know. And then we end up with the consequences we end up with. So don't call it the tree in the midst of the garden. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Know what it is. Know what it is, Eve. You're deciding what's good and evil, and that's not going to be good. So God has said, that was mistake number two. Mistake number three, she tells him, God has said, you shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. God didn't say that, because that makes it about the fruit. Don't eat of it. He says you can eat of every tree. He never mentioned the fruit. She mentioned the fruit. That's mistake number five, but I'm not going to go with that. But she makes it about the fruit. You can't eat it or touch it. And it's not about the fruit. It's about the disobedience. And it's about why you're doing it. So here, ding, 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 here's the important thing. It's about why we're committing the particular act. We make a mistake as parents, we make a mistake as a society when we point to the thing and say that it is evil. Because God wasn't saying, there was nothing magic about the fruit. When you eat the fruit, it's poison. There was something about the disobedience, the why she was eating it, that changed everything. So you can tell a child, here's where we make our mistakes. Don't, alcohol is evil. Alcohol. And it's not taking a drink that's evil. I'm lucky because alcohol doesn't taste good to me, so I never have a problem with alcohol. But for some people, they enjoy the taste. It's not the drink that's evil. It's why you're doing it. If you're doing it because you're hurt, and that's why I'm drinking, then the drink becomes your friend, right? Every time you're hurt, you're gonna drink, and that's where alcoholism comes from. If you're doing it because you're angry, if you're doing it because you're lonely, oh, no one likes me, or you're tired, and I just need to pick me up, or it's why you're doing the things you're doing. I'm tense, I'm stressed out. It's why you're doing that particular sin. Why are you looking at the pornography? Why are you doing the drugs? Why are you overeating? Why are you speeding 90 miles an hour down the highway? Why are you hitting that person? Why? Why? What's going on? It's not the thing, because the thing is neutral, you know? Uh, it's why you're doing it. And that's because when you don't solve that, when you don't God with that, when you don't go to God with, Lord, I'm so hurt, so that He can soothe that, comfort you. When you say, Lord, I'm so lonely, I have no friends, He'll say, yes, you do. Look around you. You have remember all those times like Elijah was with his buddy and he says, oh, we're all alone. And Elijah said, Lord, open his eyes so we can see. And the sky opened up and he saw all those angels around and said, we're not alone. But if he had never said, oh no, we're alone, then Elijah wouldn't have heard him and said, no, look, let me show you. And God opened up his eyes. God will open up our eyes if we go to him with our hurt. If we go to him with our anger, our loneliness, our tiredness, our tenseness, our stress. If we go to the devil with it, then he gives us the wrong answer. He comes, yeah, you are all by yourself. You know you're all by yourself, don't you? You know this is all on you, that you're the only one that can fix this. And he increases our strength. Okay. So when we go to God, he tells us the truth. That's why Jesus told those Pharisees, you're of your father, the devil. He's going to tell you lies. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you, you aren't alone. I'll tell you, you don't have to handle it by yourself. I'll tell you that I've got it. I've got you. I'll tell you uh, that I've got that hurt. But it's only if you go to me. If you go to me, I'll tell you the truth. If you go to the devil, you're just going to get the lie. So he says, he was a murderer from the beginning, your father, the devil. Who did he murder? Eve and Adam, when he separated them from God. So her third major mistake was to focus on the fruit. And it's not about the fruit. It's about why you're doing it. For God, it wasn't whether there's no, that's that one apple. I don't want you to eat that. It's nasty. It just symbolizes their distrust of God and their decision to disobey him. So he says, you will not eat it lest you die. No, he says, you shall surely die. She puts yeah, you may not die. Don't touch it because you might die. No, God said, dying, you will die. He used the word die twice in a row. You will die. That's like telling somebody, ooh, my food was hot. Was it hot? No, it was hot. Because you're trying to tell somebody, you know, it was dying, you will die. This is, they translated, you will surely die. She just said, what? She lessened the consequence. That's our fourth thing that we do wrong. We lessen the consequence. The first thing that we don't understand, we look, so maybe it's the freely give, right? You can freely eat from every tree. We start to look at it as a prohibition. We focus on the one thing God says not to do instead of the 5,000 things he said you can't do. So she took out the freely give instead of looking at everything that God has for us as a gift. She focused on the thing that he said don't do. She took the power out of what exactly the sin was. The sin is deciding what's good and evil. She focused on the fruit, and it's not the thing. You know, somebody's mama might say, "I don't want you to hang around that boy. I think that boy is bad for you." And so you say, "My mama said I can't go to your house." No, the mama said you can't. It's not about the house. It's not like the house is wrong. I'm saying stay away from him. I have that bad feeling about him. So you do that. You say, well, I'm not going to your house, but I'll ride around with you in your car. And then sure enough, you get stopped on a speeding ticket and end up in jail. And because you thought it was the house. And he said, no, I have a bad feeling about that kid. He's trouble. And so by her focusing on the fruit, it's not about that single thing. It's about why we're doing it. What does it represent? What type of rebellion is going on that we think that particular fruit will solve? If we can be honest about that, what's going on with me that is now tempting to me, then we can take that to God. Because it wasn't the fruit. It's what's going on with you, Eve, that you are now attracted to that. Oh, you feel deprived. Like, wow, there's something I can't have. You feel betrayed, like, I'm hiding something from you. Go to me with that, God is saying to Eve, and I can correct that. Because it's not the fruit that's the problem. It's what you're feeling that you think the fruit will solve. And that's always what sin is about. What are you feeling that you think that particular thing's going to solve? Take that to me, and I can solve that so that that thing no longer has power over you, because it doesn't solve it. That drink doesn't solve it. Now, again, it's not like having a drink is bad. It's the people who are doing it for the wrong reason. If you just like the taste and oh, this is delicious, okay, and you have a couple and you're good, it's fine. But if you're using the drink to solve your loneliness, that's when you're going to have 18 beers, which someone just said to me the other day. Oh, that's when you're gonna, because you're using it to solve something it can't solve. That's when you need to go to God with that. So uh, she's made these mistakes, and then she lessened the consequences, right? She turned it from freedom to prohibition. She wasn't specific about what the exact rebellion was. She focused on the fruit instead of why she was going to the tree, drawn to it, and she lessened the consequences. I may not die. And once the devil gets us to do those things, then he can get to us. So in verse 4, it says, then the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die. So this is where the lie came in. And interestingly enough, he wasn't lying at first. He just simply got her to doubt. What? Did God say that? Hey, yeah, he did say that. Now that he's got you thinking, now he can come in with the lie. You won't surely die. Well, the devil was lying because she did. Now, she did. Dying, thou shalt die, is what the literal translation is. She did die spiritually because once we cut ourselves off from God, there's a spiritual connection that's like my power cord. My computer is cut off from the power source. And so it's beginning its death. I'm now down to 25%. And once we cut off the power source, who is God, we begin that death. So technically, my computer is in death mode, and it's eventually going to totally cut off, right? Because it's once you cut yourself off from the power source, that's what Eve did. I'm cutting myself off. I'm now made the devil my power source instead of God. So eventually, so dying spiritually, she eventually died physically, which is what my computer is going to do in just a little bit. Okay, so then the serpent said to you, you will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be. So here's what's going to happen in the day you eat of it. Your eyes are going to be open. You'll be like God, and you will get to decide what's good and evil. And that became interesting to her. My eyes are going to be open finally. Well, here's what's interesting. Yes, you're going to start to see the things the way the devil sees them. Your eyes are open. And he's able to come to you and say, yeah, you really don't have any friends. You really are by yourself. You really, yeah, you should hit that my eyes are open now. I should shoot that person. That's what's going to change my life. It is all on me. Yeah, it's all up to me. I'm the only one who can solve this. And so now our eyes are open to see the world the way that the devil sees it. He is the God of the way of this world, the Bible calls it, meaning this world system. There's a way that the world sees everything. That's not the way that God originally designed it. And it's incorrect. It's not all up to you. You are not alone. Everyone doesn't hate you. That's just but now that's what the world tells us because the God of this world has created his own system. And yes, her eyes were opened. And now you're going to get to see the way it really is. Well, no, you're going to see it the way the world really says it is. He says, you'll be like God. And that's part of the temptation. I want to decide. Trust me, if we had been there, we would have all made this decision because that's the curse and the blessing of having free will. The blessing is we can freely choose God, and the curse is we can freely not choose God. And that's what free will does, and that's what we have all done. At some point in our lives, we say, you know what? I think I know better. Whether it's in your mama, whether it's in your teacher, then your boss, and ultimately then God. We would have all at some point say, I know better than God, because that's what we think of ourselves, she says. So you'll be like God, and you get to decide what's good and evil, and that's what we want. I want to decide what's best. Mama took me to Disneyland when I was 5 years old, but now I want to decide what rides I go on. I want to make that choice. That's a desire in us to be like God and make our own choices, and that's when we screw up. Interestingly enough, later on in life, when we're sick of being in charge of everything and sick of making, then somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, don't worry, I'll drive. You don't have to drive." You're like, I don't want to drive. Don't worry, I'll handle this whole. Oh, thank you. I don't want to. We think when we're young that's what we want, to be in charge of everything. That's why people are retiring from stuff and quitting stuff. And you think you want to be the chief of police? No, you don't. Because it's crazy. You think you want to be the head of this department. You think you want to be, it's too much stress. It's too much. You don't want to be in charge. And the good news is we're not in charge. God's in charge. And the sooner we recognize that, we get to sit back and go, oh, okay, I'm just going to do what God says because he already knows the answers. He knows what's right and wrong. He knows what's going to work out, what's not going to work out. And then we get to step down from being in charge of the universe. Oh, but there's a time when we think that's what we want. So we all would have rebelled. It's not as mad as we want to be at Eve. She just represents all of us. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, pleasant to the eyes and desirable to make one wise. That's the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. She saw it was good for food, so her flesh started to crave it. Because as soon as we cut ourselves off from God, then our flesh starts to tell us what to do. Pleasant to the eyes, that's the lust of the eyes. This is all in First John chapter 2. He says these are the three temptations: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. So the lust of the eyes, she began to see things the way the devil, the god of this world, was showing her. Yeah, that fruit is, oh, that looks good, and desirable to make one wise. That satisfies that pride of life in her. Where yes, you get to be wise. You get to be the one that gets to decide. And so we all want that, right? And so how come the devil's not in the three temptations? Because it's the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Because this is what he uses on us. These are the three areas we're vulnerable that the devil gets to get to us. Don't you want to be in charge, or through our flesh? Ooh, look, well, then your flesh crave that, or hey, here's how the world operates. The world says every man for himself. Or the world says the first one who, and he gives us the world system and makes us see things the way the world, and we think, oh, I better do that, right? So once she had started listening to the devil instead of talking to God, then she was open, vulnerable in those three areas: the lust of the eyes, the flesh, and the pride of life. And the Bible says she saw, she took, she ate. And that's what we do. She saw the fruit, she took the fruit, and she ate it. And that's what sin is. I see it, take it, and now I'm gonna act on it. Here's the good part. And she also gave to her husband with her. So now Adam is there. Now Adam is there. And he ate. And here's what the best part is. Eve was thinking layered, like women think, layers. It took a lot for the devil to get to her. He had to say this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. Adam didn't need that. Adam needed one thing for him to sin, because men are not as complicated, as layered. I'm trying to say it nicely. When I'm teaching high school, I just say boys are stupider than girls, because it's the truth. But I'm going to try to say it in a nice way. Ladies just think in more layers, and just men are just duh. So I just want to use this example. If I was When I was in high school, and I would say, not when I was teaching, I would say, hey, all you guys, we're going to go up on the roof and we're going to throw rocks off the roof. They'd all go, okay, because guys just need a person to say we should do this. And even though someone said you should stay in class, they can switch their allegiance just like that. Guys, either I'm following you or I'm following you. Okay, we're all going to the roof. Okay, that I would have to give the girls 59 reasons why that would be interesting. Because girls need like more, like what we're doing, what and why, and I'm gonna get dirty how and that, and it's like guys' brains don't even work that way. So Adam simply saw Eve eat and said, "Okay," and so there's a difference in. That's why the Bible's been so much time on Eve, and that's why it just says, and then she turned to Adam, and I'm going to explain the difference next week in between Adam and Eve, and this whole thing about Eve being deceived and Adam wasn't, blah blah blah. We're going to explain all that. It's the opposite of what you think. It's the exact opposite of what you think. So please tune in next week, part 2 of why we sin and how to stop. And also, those of you who are members of Good Shepherd, hang around for Pastor Grimm, and I'll see some of you. I'm teaching on Book of Matthew on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now I've got to figure out how to do this, and I will talk to you later. Did I do it? Yes.